It started with a skull. Half buried beneath damp soil, surrounded by tangled roots and decaying leaves, it peeked out from the earth like a ghost unwilling to be forgotten. The discovery was made by a K9 unit, the dog suddenly alert, sniffing, scratching at the dirt, until the truth revealed itself. A crime scene technician knelt beside the shallow grave, brushing away the layers of soil, revealing a piece of jewelry tangled in the remains. A necklace. A bullet pendant. The forensic team knew then, this wasn't just another cold case. This was Taylor Wright. But before Taylor Wright became a name on the evening news, before she became a story of betrayal, greed, and murder, she was a woman, a mother, a fighter. And, in the end, she never saw it coming. To understand how she ended up here, alone in the woods, we need to go back, to the last day she was seen alive. Taylor Wright was no ordinary woman. She had the soul of a warrior, forged in hardship and battle. A former police officer. A private investigator. Someone who had spent years chasing the truth. But in September of 2017, the hunter became the hunted. Taylor was in the middle of a storm, fighting a bitter legal battle with her ex-husband, navigating a fresh start with her girlfriend, Cassandra Waller, and trying to get her finances in order before an upcoming court date. Money was tight. Time was running out. And stress was mounting. But she had a friend. Ashley MacArthur. A former crime scene investigator, someone who knew how to cover her tracks. Someone Taylor trusted. Someone Taylor handed over $34,000 to hold on to, money she would soon need for court. And, in the end, money that would cost Taylor her life. On September 8, Taylor left her home to run errands with Ashley. They spent the day together, just two friends, talking, laughing, riding horses. At least, that's what Ashley said. By nightfall, Taylor was gone. At first, her absence was a mystery. Her phone sent a few text messages. "I need some time to think. Everything is okay." But something was off. The words didn't sound like her. The timing didn't make sense. Days passed. Then weeks. And the truth started to unravel. Ashley's story had holes. The alibis didn't match up. And investigators began to dig, not just for answers, but for a body. What they found would send shockwaves through the community. Taylor Wright had been executed. Shot in the back of the head. And the person responsible? The friend she trusted the most. Ashley MacArthur thought she had committed the perfect crime. She thought she was smarter than the detectives, quicker than the system, untouchable. She was wrong. Because the devil is always in the details. And Taylor Wright? She didn't go down without leaving a trail. What happened in those final moments? What really unfolded between Taylor and Ashley on that fateful day? The answers are chilling. And they are just beginning to come to light. Taylor Wright was a fighter. She had been since childhood. Abandoned at a young age, shuffled through the foster care system, she had learned early on that the only person she could truly rely on was herself. But fate had other plans. Nancy Murchison was one of the few people who saw Taylor for who she really was, a scared but determined young girl who just needed a chance. And Nancy gave her one. Taylor moved in with her and her sons, finally finding a place to call home. It was there, in the warmth of a real family, that she started to believe in something she had never truly experienced before, stability. But Taylor wasn't the type to settle down for long. She was restless, full of energy, and always searching for the next challenge. That drive led her to North Carolina, where she met Jeff Wright, a Marine. Jeff was everything Taylor admired, strong, disciplined, and unshaken by her tough exterior. Unlike most people, he didn't see her as intimidating. He saw her as extraordinary. "Our first date ended with us throwing knives at a dartboard," Jeff later recalled with a chuckle. That's just who she was. Competitive. Fearless. And man, she looked amazing in a dress. Taylor and Jeff fell hard and fast. They built a life together, one filled with adventure and laughter. When Jeff was deployed on combat tours, Taylor refused to sit back and wait. She wanted to serve too. So she became a police officer in Jacksonville, North Carolina, a role that suited her almost too well. Taylor had a presence about her. She carried herself with confidence, and she wasn't afraid to speak her mind. She was the kind of cop who wanted to befriend everyone, but at the same time, she had a no-nonsense attitude. She didn't tolerate disrespect. She stood her ground. Her best friend and supervising officer, Barbara Evanson, saw something special in her. Taylor was an absolutely amazing person, she later said. She had this way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the room. By 2010, Taylor's life seemed to be on a steady path. She and Jeff welcomed their son, Drake. And if there was one role Taylor took more seriously than anything else, it was being a mother. She adored her son, doted on him, and spent every spare moment with him. But nothing stays perfect forever. The cracks in Taylor and Jeff's marriage started slowly at first, small arguments, disagreements over finances, long separations while Jeff was away on duty. And then, one night, over dinner, it all came crashing down. It was their 10th wedding anniversary, a moment that should have been a celebration. Instead, it became a defining moment of their relationship. Nancy Murchison later said that Taylor had been blindsided when Jeff said he wanted a divorce. She felt betrayed, like everything they had built had meant nothing. But Jeff told a different story. According to him, Taylor had been the one to end it. She was very direct about it, he said. "I do not want to be with you anymore." That's what she told me. Regardless of how it started, the divorce quickly turned ugly. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more gripping true crime and like this video. Thank you so much for your support. Custody of Drake became a battleground. Taylor fought hard, but her circumstances were difficult. She had already left law enforcement, and her career prospects were grim. Then, one night, during a heated argument, things escalated. The police were called. Taylor was arrested for battery. The charges were later dropped, but the damage had already been done. No police department would hire her. And without a steady income or a stable home, she was forced to do the unthinkable, relinquish full custody of her son to Jeff. It was a crushing blow. But Taylor was nothing if not resourceful. She reinvented herself as a private investigator, using the same skills she'd honed as a cop. She was good at it too. She had a sharp mind, a relentless work ethic, and a natural instinct for uncovering the truth. Still, there was one more battle she wasn't ready to give up on, the money. Years earlier, before she and Jeff had married, Taylor had been in a bad car accident. The settlement was significant, $100,000. And she was adamant that the money was hers alone. Jeff disagreed. The court stepped in, freezing their assets while they sorted things out. But Taylor wasn't the type to wait for permission. She somehow managed to withdraw the full $100,000, despite the judge's order. When the court caught wind of it, they were furious. A new ruling came down. Taylor had 4 days to show up to court with a check for $25,000. 4 days. That was all the time she had left before she vanished. Taylor Wright had spent her life navigating obstacles. She had faced them head-on, fought through them with sheer determination, and somehow always managed to land on her feet. But in September 2017, she was on the verge of what should have been a fresh start. A new career. A new home. A new relationship. She had taken a job as a private investigator, a perfect fit for someone with her skills and experience. She knew how to read people, how to follow leads, how to uncover secrets. And after everything she had been through, she was ready to put those talents to use. She was also ready to commit to her girlfriend, Cassandra Waller. Their relationship hadn't been perfect, far from it. There had been moments of doubt, mistakes, and even betrayal. Taylor's occasional drug use and infidelity had put a strain on them. But despite the turbulence, despite the rocky beginning, they had found a way forward. They were building something together. That weekend should have been a happy one. A milestone. Taylor was moving into Waller's home in Pensacola, Florida. They spent the entire weekend packing, unpacking, making space for a new life together. For Waller, it wasn't just about moving furniture and boxes. It was about the promise of something better. My whole birthday weekend was moving her stuff, and helping her move, Waller later recalled. But I didn't mind, 'cause it was, like, I was really happy. And then, just like that, Taylor was gone. She left the house that day with a friend, Ashley MacArthur. Waller wasn't worried at first. Taylor and Ashley had known each other for a while. Ashley had once been a crime scene investigator, someone who understood the same world Taylor had worked in. But when the hours passed and Taylor didn't return, something felt off. She didn't answer her phone. She didn't respond to messages. She missed a birthday dinner that Waller had been looking forward to. And then, at 8 p.m., Waller finally got a text from Taylor's phone. "I'll call you later. I'm not angry with you and I should have called, but I just needed to think. I am trying to get my life organized and on track." On the surface, it might have seemed reasonable. But to Waller, it felt wrong. The wording, the tone, none of it sounded like Taylor. They had just spent the weekend moving in together. Taylor had been excited about this next chapter. Why would she suddenly need time to think? Ashley MacArthur had an answer for that. She told investigators that Taylor had been emotional that day. That she had broken down in tears, twice. That she had been overwhelmed by stress. To help her relax, Ashley had taken her horseback riding at her family's farm in Milton, Florida. According to Ashley, Taylor had eventually left on her own. She said Taylor had taken an Uber downtown around 4:30 p.m. to get a beer. Then, just before midnight, Ashley received a text from Taylor's phone. "I'm okay. I just need some time to think. The move in court is very stressful. I need a few days to myself. Everything is okay. I am not doing anything bad." On its own, maybe that message wouldn't have raised suspicions. But combined with the other text, the radio silence, and the missed plans, it felt scripted. And as the days passed with no sign of Taylor, that feeling only grew stronger. Waller couldn't shake the sense that something was deeply, horribly wrong. She reported Taylor missing. The police began their search. They started with the people closest to her. Waller was the first person they questioned. But from the beginning, she was cooperative. She handed over her phone, her electronics, anything they needed. She had nothing to hide. Cassandra wasn't trying to hide anything, Pensacola detective Chad Wilhite later said. They looked into Jeff Wright, Taylor's ex-husband. The divorce had been ugly. The custody battle, brutal. And there had been financial disputes that still hadn't been settled. But Jeff had an alibi. He was in North Carolina, hundreds of miles away. Then, investigators searched Waller's home. There, they found something strange. An uncashed cashier's check. $19,000. Taylor had needed money. She had been ordered by the court to bring $25,000 in just a few days. That money had been a source of immense stress. And yet, here was nearly $20,000, untouched. If Taylor had truly run away to clear her mind, why would she leave that money behind? The pieces weren't adding up. And all roads seemed to lead back to one person. Ashley MacArthur. The last person to see Taylor alive. The friend who had taken her out that day. The one who insisted Taylor had left on her own. But the more investigators looked into Ashley's story, the more things stopped making sense. Investigators had followed every lead. They had searched for any sign that Taylor Wright had simply run away, had taken off to escape the stress of her life. But the pieces weren't fitting. Taylor's work as a private investigator had sometimes put her in dangerous situations. She had followed cheating spouses, uncovered secrets people didn't want exposed. But detectives found no evidence that someone from her job had harmed her. That left them with one final question. What about the last person to see her alive? Ashley MacArthur. Ashley had been confident when she spoke to police. Calm. Almost dismissive. I don't believe Taylor's been harmed, she told detectives. I think Taylor's doing what Taylor does. She painted a picture of Taylor as unreliable. Unstable. The kind of person who might just disappear for a few days. But detectives weren't buying it. Because when they started checking Ashley's story, it started falling apart. She had told them that Taylor left her house around 4:30 p.m. That she had called an Uber or a Lyft to take her downtown. But there was no record of any Uber. No Lyft. No taxi. No evidence that Taylor had ever left Ashley's home at all. Then, there was the horseback riding. Ashley had said she took Taylor out to a family farm in Milton that day to help her relax. But cell phone records told a different story. Ashley hadn't been in Milton that afternoon. She had been somewhere else entirely, on a secluded property in Cantonment, Florida. A rural farm owned by her aunt and uncle. And that's when the case shifted. 6 weeks after Taylor had vanished, investigators obtained a search warrant for the farm. At the same time, they brought Ashley in for questioning. She sat in the interrogation room, keeping her story straight, denying everything. But while she was talking, a team of detectives, along with a specially trained K-9 unit, were combing through the wooded property in Cantonment. And then, they found it. A portion of a human skull, barely visible, buried beneath layers of concrete and potting soil. And next to it, Taylor's necklace. The one she never took off. The one with the distinctive bullet. There was no doubt now. Taylor hadn't left on her own. She hadn't taken an Uber. She hadn't disappeared to clear her head. She had been murdered. Pensacola Police Detective Jeff Brown would later describe the scene, explaining that Taylor had suffered a gunshot wound to the back of the head. A shot she never saw coming. Investigators immediately arrested Ashley MacArthur. But as they dug deeper, they realized this wasn't just about a murder. Ashley had secrets of her own. She worked in her family's jukebox and pool table rental business. On the surface, it seemed legitimate. But behind the scenes, Ashley had been stealing money, skimming profits, shortchanging the bar owners she worked with. And when things started catching up with her, she set a fire at the business, burning records, trying to erase any trace of her theft. The arson charges wouldn't stick. But the fraud and racketeering charges would. And then there was the money. The money Taylor had trusted her with. Taylor had taken $100,000, the money she had fought to keep from her divorce settlement. She had given $34,000 of it to Ashley. To hold. To keep safe. But Ashley hadn't kept it safe. She had spent it. Not on rent. Not on bills. On an affair. She had been seeing another man, secretly showering him with gifts, spending Taylor's money like it was her own. And then, when Taylor needed it back, when she had to bring that check to court, Ashley panicked. She didn't have the money. And Taylor wasn't the kind of person to just let that go. Ashley had a problem. And she needed to make it disappear. Investigators built their case carefully. There was no DNA evidence. No security footage of the murder itself. But there were breadcrumbs. Cell phone records. Financial records. Surveillance footage of Ashley purchasing concrete and potting soil, the very materials used to bury Taylor. And then, there were the chilling statements she had made to friends. One after another, people took the stand and repeated what Ashley had told them before Taylor's death. That she had planned to buy cocaine. That she was going to lace Taylor's beer, make it look like an overdose. And then, the moment that changed everything. The morning Taylor disappeared, Ashley had been seen purchasing that very beer. One friend testified that Taylor had actually taken a sip, but spit it out. She said it tasted funny. She never finished it. And that, Ashley had told her friend, is why she had to use the gun instead. A jury didn't take long to deliberate. They found Ashley MacArthur guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison, with a mandatory minimum of 25 years. Justice had been served. But for the people who loved Taylor, there was no victory. In so many ways, I feel that I was robbed, Nancy Murchison said. I love her. And I miss her. And that will never stop. Ashley MacArthur had spun a tangled web of deceit, manipulation, and cold-blooded murder. But even after a jury found her guilty of taking the life of her so-called friend, Taylor Wright, over stolen money, MacArthur refused to accept her fate. She fought to overturn her conviction, grasping at legal technicalities, claiming she had been treated unfairly in court. But what she didn't count on was the strength of the case against her. Every lie, every financial transaction, every misplaced alibi had already painted an unmistakable picture of premeditated murder. And the justice system wasn't about to let her slip through the cracks. MacArthur's motive had been simple, yet deeply sinister. Taylor had trusted her with $34,000, a portion of the $100,000 Taylor had taken from a joint marital account while going through a contentious divorce. She had given MacArthur the money for safekeeping. A temporary measure. But Ashley had other plans. Instead of holding the money for Taylor, she saw it as an opportunity. She funneled it into her own personal spending, lavishing gifts on a secret lover, indulging in luxuries she hadn't earned. And then Taylor needed the money back. She was expecting to retrieve it. She was ready to walk into court and show that she had every right to the funds. But the money was gone. MacArthur, now backed into a corner, had a choice to make. Admit to stealing from Taylor and face the consequences, or eliminate the one person who could expose her. She chose murder. With chilling precision, MacArthur lured Taylor into what should have been a peaceful afternoon, horseback riding at her family's farm. But it wasn't the farm in Milton, as she later claimed. Instead, she took Taylor to a remote property in Cantonment, Florida, a quiet, desolate place where no one would hear a gunshot. Taylor never saw it coming. Investigators later determined that she had been shot execution style, a single bullet to the back of the head. A betrayal so deep, so personal, it sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened detectives. Her body was then concealed, buried under concrete and potting soil along the fence line of MacArthur's aunt's farm. It was a crude, hasty grave, one meant to erase Taylor's existence as if she had never been there at all. But secrets like that don't stay buried forever. MacArthur's trial was a showcase of damning evidence. Prosecutors meticulously laid out her movements. Surveillance footage showed her purchasing concrete and potting soil the day after Taylor disappeared. Cell phone records contradicted her claims of where she had been. And most damning of all, multiple witnesses testified that MacArthur had openly discussed drugging Taylor's beer to stage an overdose, an eerie prelude to the crime she ultimately carried out. But even with a mountain of evidence stacked against her, MacArthur clung to any chance of escape. She appealed, claiming her trial had been unfair. Her biggest argument? A photograph of her crouching in hunting gear, pointing a shotgun, had been accidentally shown to the jury for a brief moment. She insisted it was prejudicial. That it painted her as a violent person. Her defense team argued that the jury should never have seen the image. That it had influenced them unfairly. But the appeals court saw through the smoke and mirrors. The justices were quick to dismantle MacArthur's arguments. The photograph in question, they ruled, had flashed on the screen for only a second or two. It was an accident. A mistake that was quickly addressed with a cautionary instruction from the judge. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more gripping true crime and like this video. Thank you so much for your support. And besides, MacArthur's ownership of firearms had already been well established in court. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't new information. If anything, the brief display of the image had been insignificant compared to the overwhelming evidence that had already sealed her fate. The appeals court also dismissed her claims that certain statements and text messages should have been excluded. The reality was that Taylor's messages, the ones she had sent in the days leading up to her murder, weren't just idle words. They were crucial. They established a timeline. They gave insight into her state of mind. They revealed her growing concern over MacArthur's behavior. And perhaps most chillingly, they served as the voice Taylor could no longer use to tell the world what had happened to her. MacArthur's appeal was denied. Her life sentence remained intact. For Taylor's loved ones, the outcome of the trial and the failed appeal brought some closure. But no amount of legal victories could ever erase the pain of losing her. She had been a woman of strength. A former police officer. A private investigator. Someone who had faced danger in her career but had never expected that betrayal would come from someone she called a friend. The comments that poured in from the public reflected the raw emotion surrounding the case. Psychopaths aren't friends. They are predators. Enjoy your lifetime stay at the Graybar Hotel, Ashley. You deserve nothing but life in prison. One of the worst sins is to take a life for something as meaningless as money. It's sickening. MacArthur, once a woman who had lived a life of deception and manipulation, now faced a future where she could deceive no one. Locked away. Forgotten by the world she once thought she could outsmart. Justice had spoken. And Taylor Wright would never be forgotten. When the jury delivered its verdict, the courtroom was silent for just a moment, before the weight of justice crashed down like a tidal wave. Guilty. Ashley MacArthur, a woman who once worked crime scenes and processed evidence, was now the subject of a case that would haunt Pensacola forever. A cold-blooded killer who had betrayed and murdered her own friend over stolen money, MacArthur would spend the rest of her days behind bars. Her sentence? Life in prison. For Taylor Wright's grieving loved ones, the verdict brought a sense of justice, but no sentence, no punishment, could ever erase the pain of such a deep, unforgivable betrayal. Today, Ashley MacArthur calls Lowell Correctional Institution in Marion County, Florida home. But unlike her old life, where she once held the power of knowledge and evidence in her hands, she now exists in a cold, controlled world where she holds no power at all. Lowell Correctional is no ordinary prison. It is one of the largest women's prisons in the country, housing some of the most notorious female offenders in Florida's history. Known for its harsh conditions, violence, and strict structure, it is a far cry from the comfortable life MacArthur once led. Gone are the days of manipulating money and playing with people's trust. Gone are the moments of deception where she spun lies and hid behind a mask of charm. Now, she wakes up every day to the reality of her crimes, surrounded by other convicted criminals, steel bars, and the relentless weight of time. Unlike the social life she once enjoyed, where she wined and dined with friends, indulged in secret affairs, and spent money she didn't earn, MacArthur now follows a rigid routine. Wake up. Eat. Work. Sleep. Repeat. Her movements are controlled. Her freedoms are gone. The only place she travels now is within the confines of razor-wired fences, a stark reminder that her days of deception and betrayal are over. She is no longer Ashley MacArthur, the woman who laughed with friends, the crime scene tech who handled evidence. She is inmate J51585, just another number in the prison system. The story of Ashley MacArthur is one that continues to send chills down the spines of those who hear it. The woman who once stood on the side of law enforcement turned into a criminal herself, caught in the very system she once worked for. Her case has drawn renewed attention, especially after being featured on Dateline on Oxygen, where the chilling details of Taylor Wright's murder were revisited. It's a story of greed, deceit, and a friendship destroyed by betrayal, but more importantly, it's a reminder that justice, no matter how delayed, always arrives. And for Ashley MacArthur, justice came with a life sentence and a permanent place behind bars. If you enjoyed this story and want more gripping true crime content, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Let us know what case you want to see next. Your support helps us bring you more deep dive crime stories.